Let's do this!
Welcome to Mornings with Matt, personal and professional development training that connects the art of acting with critical life skills and self-mastery. Presented by the Deering Acting Studio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mornings with Matt. I am literally giddy this morning. My body is just full of chills and excitement and so much goodness because the boys are back in town.
Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town.
Set us up for that one.
These guys jumped over to Colorado and just had an amazing time disconnecting from technology and from me. I can tell you're very refreshed, and I got to tell you, it's really, really nice to have you back in the studio.
Dude, it's so good to be back. We missed you, and thanks for letting us do that. It was a blast.
Dude, well, let me tell you this. I'm not only giddy because you guys are back. I'm also giddy because we've got a special guest today, Miss Barbara Torino.
Hey.
Hello, good morning, Barbara.
Good morning, Matt.
I am fascinated by you and your career. You've got a lot of really good things going on, including the book right behind you, I see.
Shameless plug.
I love it. I love it. You got to do it. So tell us about the book here, because I think you and I have a lot of connections based on what I've read and talked about.
Oh, absolutely. But it's funny. You opened the show. You said you were giddy, and can I just tell a little story about that?
Yeah, of course.
So I was kind of assessing how I was feeling. Brian asked me, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here, and I think I'm a little nervous." And so it brought back this kind of family tradition that we have. We're a theater family. And my granddaughter was privileged when she's 13 now, but when she was 9, she was on Broadway for 6 months. And her opening night, I said, "How are you feeling?" She said, "Well, I'm really nervous." So I said, "Well, think about it. Are you excited or are you nervous? Because internally, that feels the same, excitement and nervousness."
That's right.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how nervous and how excited. And she said, 10 excited and 4 nervous. So I said, "Well, that's good." So now we always do that. So I'm trying to assess. I guess I'm 10 excited and maybe 3 nervous.
I love it. I love it. Your granddaughter was on Broadway when she was 9. Let's talk about that.
She was. It was kind of amazing. She had no experience. She had been in one community theater production, and I happen to have a cousin who's an agent, and she said to my son, "Maya is Broadway material." And he said, "What are you talking about? She has no resume. She hardly has taken any singing lessons, And she said, "I'm telling you, she's Broadway." So she sent her to a couple of Broadway auditions, and she got to the final callback for 2 of them, and then the third one was a wonderful Tony Award-winning show called Fun Home, and she booked it, and she was there for 6 months, and she was the swing understudy for all 3 of the kids, the young girl and the 2 boys. And she was the only actor in the course of the whole run that got to go on for all 3 of the actors. So it was really unbelievable experience for her and for the whole family. And we're just so excited. And she's on her way. She's just turned 14, and she's in the process of releasing her first single. And
yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So she's still in music now. And she's got she has her first single that she's recorded. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? It's called 24 Hours. Is that right?
Yes. It's called 24 Hours. She lives in Newport Beach, and it's been a very tough year in Newport Beach for many reasons. And the community has suffered an awful lot of loss. And the school that she went to, they lost a wonderful young lady, and many other families. So they were really devastated by this loss. And so Brian, my son, said, "Well, why don't we write about it?" And so they collaborated and they wrote this song, and then Maya recorded it. and it's called 24 Hours. Don't let a minute go to waste, because you only have 24 hours in a day. So it's a very beautiful song. One of my questions down the road to you was, how do you market that? What do you do with that? It's challenging. So, but it's a beautiful song, and she's a very, very talented young lady. Very proud of her.
Well, first of all, you're already doing that just by being on shows like this and just talking about it and being honest. And number two, Brian, can we book her granddaughter on the show?
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Maybe like 3 weeks from now, we'll have her on the show. What an awesome story. I mean, I'm very passionate about teenagers and mental health and just connecting people together and making. I love this idea of time. I'm obsessed with time. Actually, I think it's one of the things people don't realize how important our time is. It's this resource that is not unlimited. We have this limited resource of time, and nobody knows how much each of us has left. And yet, a lot of people, including myself, the way I used to live, waste time as if it was an unlimited resource.
Exactly. When you get to be my age, Matt, that kind of comes home really strong, because you know that there's less before you than there is behind you. And so you really have to think about, how are you using that time? What's left that you want to do? What's on that bucket list that still wants to get done? And how am I going to best use the time that I have left? Nobody knows how long that's going to be. So every day is important. You get to do fun things like this. How exciting.
It's so great. Okay, so I do have some advice, though, on marketing, and I'm going to give Kevin Hart the credit here. I'm reading his audiobook right now. I'm listening to his audiobook, and it's really cool. He's a very successful man, as we all know, and very connected to family and to work ethic and whatnot. And one of the things he mentioned that I thought was really interesting, and this came full circle back to me and my book and the different things that I'm doing too. And he said most creatives, they put all this time and effort into the creative process. So, for instance, making a movie. But then a lot of actors feel like they're too good for the marketing process. They don't want to show up. They don't want to go to the different signings. They don't want to do what it takes to make a blockbuster hit. And then he said, and then they wonder why they do this great movie, and then they turn around and blame the studio and say, why'd you guys not get this thing out there? But the truth is, the actor has to do the work, has to go and put as much effort or more into the marketing process as they do the creative process. So I'd recommend that you mention to your son and your granddaughter, say, okay, let's pretend we go back to that writing process when you were so inspired and you were putting all your time and effort into it, and what could we do to do that to create that same energy and vitality when it comes to marketing? And it all depends on your why. So if we connect her back to her why, which sounds like it's very strong, the reason she wrote the song and why it needs to get out there and kids need to hear it, then it should be easier for them to grind away at that. And because honestly, I don't have the answer. I just know the answer comes from daily discipline, doing something to push it forward.
Excuse me. Sorry. Jumping on that, Matt, I was
let me
still dealing with that. So one of the things that I just thought of is an improv game we do in the class, where basically they're all coming up with ideas on marketing ideas. Somebody's like the leader and they're coming up with an invention, right?
Right.
So marketing can be fun. I mean, it really can be. It seems like a big daunting task, but with social media and stuff, you can come up with really creative ideas to bring in that creative side of you to the marketing side. And then it's the discipline of staying consistent. I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges when you're dealing with marketing. But I mean, there's so many platforms for her, for you, find different ways that she could uniquely be her, share her message in a way that's captivating through any one of the social platforms. Like TikTok, she could be making little funny videos about things, or serious videos in different spots. And so I think it can be a creative person's like dream. You talk about this a lot, creating content. is so huge. So I think that'd be the little piece of advice I'd throw out there is it can be a lot of fun. It's just the discipline part of continuing to do it is probably where I'd say the biggest challenge comes from.
Love that. All right, so let's move back to you, Barbara, here, and your book. Can you tell us about your book a little bit?
Well, yes. My book, the reason why I love you guys is my kids were on the same wavelength. Sorry.
Me too. I feel it.
You know, you guys, you're not allowed to cough this day nowadays.
I know. We're not allowed.
As soon as you cough, everyone's like, you got it. You have the thing. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So, well, as I explained, theater has always been a part of my life. I've always loved it. And after I was divorced, my two boys and I were involved in theater for about 10 years. And it was the glue that held us all together. My younger one, Maya, got her talent from my younger son, her father. And he and I would go on stage, and my older son would do sets and lighting. So it was really a wonderful thing. Theater has always just served my family so well. And so I just continued doing theater as an adult and just loved it. But I also was in the corporate world now for about 40 years. And so probably about, 10 or 15 years ago, my business was doing really well, and I was getting more clients, and I was also getting more better parts, more lead roles in the theater. So I started to think about, was there a correlation there? Was I using maybe some of the skills from theater in my business life? So I was thinking about it, and I said, well, yeah, I think so. And then one day, you have that epiphany moment. I was in a workshop, it was a leadership workshop, and one of the managers was complaining because his employees were coming to work, and if they were having a bad day, they would bring this bad mood into work and take it out on each other and then eventually on their customers. And so he said, do you have any advice that, can you do some kind of training to talk to them about this? And so at that point, my what I call my Showtime philosophy training was born, and I gave them an analogy. I said, well, think about this. You go to the theater, very excited, Saturday night, your night out, you can't wait to go to your favorite theater, and the director usually comes out and welcomes everyone. So the director comes out and welcomes you. Thank you for coming to the theater tonight. I do have an announcement and an apology because our lead actor is having a really bad day. His personal life is messed up, and he's just having a bad day. So his performance is not going to be really good, but you understand he's having a bad day. It happens to everybody, right? And people in the group would kind of chuckle, and I'd say, well, what do you think about that? And they'd say, well, that's unacceptable. And well, why? Everybody has a bad day. Well, it's unacceptable because we're paying for performance, and we don't care if he's having a bad day. We want to see the performance that we paid for. And then the light starts to dawn on them, and I said, well, why is it any different here in your business? This happened to be an automotive dealership, and it was a service department.
Yeah.
I said, if I bring my car in for service and you're in a bad mood, I really don't care. I just want the performance. So we kind of talked about the fact that all of us are on stage. Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. We're on stage every single day. And we have a role to play. And we have an audience, whoever that might be. And the audience could give us a standing ovation and rave reviews, or we could get the hook. So that really, it came home to them in a very special way, and they started to change their thoughts. And so I started thinking, wow, well, that was kind of like a theater skill that I'm using here in business. What else have I got? And so as I thought about it, and I started to come up with more things that I do, that I learned from the theater, that I was applying in my business life. And I said, aha, I think I have a book. And that's when I put my book out. And
when did the book come out?
Well, it's it's out, Matt. It's been out since 2011.
Awesome.
So,
That's great. That's wonderful. That's excellent. And so almost 10 years now, almost the 10-year anniversary. How do we find the book?
say that again.
How can we get it if we want to order it, buy the book?
Well, it's on Amazon. In fact, I just had to upload it again to Amazon. So within about 72 hours, the paperback and the Kindle edition will be on Amazon. And I also have a website, the same name, www.gettingyouracttogether. And you can go on there and read about the book and the workshops. I have a lot of workshops around the book from each of the chapters.
That's wonderful.
I've created a workshop.
That's great. And it's putting the show into business. I love that idea. Yeah. It's something we talk about a lot, actually, which is the every person does have that ability. And I always say the best actors, when they hit the stage and the lights come on, they actually get better.
Yes.
It's a weird thing, but like you've seen an actor rehearse, you've seen them rehearse, you thought they were so awesome, and then when the big lights come on and then you see them and you go, oh my gosh, I didn't know they were capable of that, because they just turn it on to a whole nother level no matter what's going on in their life. It's really, really amazing what great actors can do. And that connection to business is so awesome, and even to just life, to people, because we do have the ability to take a light switch and just go, boop, I'm just going to decide that I'm on stage and I'm going to change how I feel. And I like this too. I'm sure you agree. There's something to this idea of, the manager saying, oh man, it's so frustrating having people come in with a negative attitude because it affects everybody else. Well, there is definitely a mentality among theater people of team, of family. And of course they fight. Of course it's not always perfect backstage. But when you get on the stage and the lights are on, you got to trust each other to the next level. You have to give in completely and be willing to throw anything else away just to make the other person look good. That's your job, really. And you would be just ostracized if you came on stage with a bad attitude and infected everybody else.
Exactly.
And you could even take it this way too. You could say, what if it wasn't the lead actor that was in a bad mood? What if it was just one of the lower level actors, somebody who just had like a one-liner, and they come in and just infect everybody with negativity, and it throws off the whole show? I mean, it's very easy for something like that to happen. And next thing you know, you're thinking about the wrong things. You're not focused on what you should be focused on. And you just get thrown completely. I mean, I think this analogy is awesome. What a really cool idea for a book and for workshops. I think people have a lot to learn there.
Well, thank you. My very first director said exactly what you just said. We were a big cast and some new people, and he said, this show is only as good as its weakest actor. So don't be that. Do your best and make it a family, and the audience will feel that. And they did. We had wonderful shows and sold out. And so you're absolutely right.
How amazing is this? Okay, so now you run something called Pros. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So Pros is my business, and so I worked for probably about 20 years as a consultant for General Motors with General Motors dealerships. That's where I was staying. I was in the service department.
How did you get that job? How did you get that job, first of all?
Well, it's funny. I think there was divine intervention, Matt.
Okay.
I was looking for something to do. I had been a teacher in my earlier life for a few years, and I stayed home with my boys. And then when it was time to go back, it was like, what am I going to do? And so I started my own business, and I was doing training for adults and workshops, but it was okay, but nothing was clicking. And then one day I got a phone call, and they said, we're a consulting company, and we have your resume. And when they called me by my maiden name, and that was years before. So I said, well, where did you get this resume? Because I don't remember sending you a resume. And they said, no, we don't accept submissions from anybody. You have to be referred. And I said, oh, well, who referred me? And they said, well, we don't know. We just got your resume. And so would you be willing to come out to Detroit and interview? And I said, well, let me check my calendar. Yes. And I went out, and that was the start of a career that lasted 20 years. And I have to say that to this day, I don't know who sent them my resume.
Thank you, Lord. I appreciate that one. That was a good one. So let me ask you this then too, because I'm always curious. With everything that's going on in the world right now and all the different varying opinions and anger and whatnot, you came up as a woman in a time that wasn't easy to be a woman owning a business or coming up in a big organization like that. Did you run into any difficulties or any like big hills that you had to climb?
Absolutely. A woman in business and a woman in the automotive industry, that's a challenge. And I remember a funny story. It was my very first, I got the job. Before I started pros, so I worked for a couple of dealerships, and this one dealership that I worked for just had an ad in the paper we're looking for the best sales trainer out there. So I called and said, you had an ad in the paper with my name on it, and I'd like to and they gave me an interview, and I used all the buzzwords, and I had no idea what I was talking about. And so I got the job, and now I had to train salespeople. So my first class, I'm sitting there, and I introduced myself, and there's 25 men in the audience, long-time salesmen, so most of them were very veteran. And so I said, we're going to have some sales training, and somebody in the back, some guy, big gruff, and this was in New Jersey, so that gives you a little bit of, he says, hey, lady, did you ever sell cars? And I said, in my head, what am I going to do? Do I lie? I said, no. I said, well, I'll tell you, I've sold a lot of things in my life, but I haven't sold cars, but I think I have some things to teach you. And he said, well, if you ain't sold no cars, I got nothing to learn from you. And he walked out. So now I have 24 eyes looking at me and saying, okay, lady, now what?
Yeah.
So in that moment, another thing that I do to this day was born. And I said, look, I haven't sold cars, but I've sold a lot of things, and I know my stuff. And so what I'm asking of you is to give me 1 hour of your time. And if you don't learn at least one thing from me that gets you closer to your potential and your goals, then you don't ever have to come back to another class. So they sat there, and at the end of the class, nobody left. And then I had a talk with the gentleman that had left about proper behavior and asked him the same thing. Please come back and sit with me for 1 hour. And again, if you don't learn something, you never have to come back again. I'll tell the boss you're excused. So he did. He came back, apologized to the class for his behavior, and sat through the class. And from that moment on, he became my biggest fan. And if somebody would cut up in the class, he'd say, hey, she's talking. So it was, that's where that little tip was born. And I use that to this day. So yeah, so being a woman in business and in the automotive industry was very difficult. You had to establish credibility very quickly. And I never tried to tell people what to do, or I know more than you know. It was, you have more experience than I do. I have things to teach you. You have things to teach me. Let's kind of learn and grow together and see where this goes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great viewpoint. It's like the idea of walking in a room and being curious versus walking in the room and saying, I know. You walk in and say, I don't know. Here's what I do know, though. I can teach you this. I'm not going to pretend like I'm anything I'm not. And that, there's an entire career now wrapped around one tiny little moment where you decided not to lie and to be authentic.
Yes.
And there's that moment, and you admit it. Like, we all have this moment where in our minds, we want to say the thing to cover up and make ourselves look better or whatever, and we go, nope. Let me just be where I am and have faith in the work that I have done, and see if there's something I can provide here.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Well, and I love that you had full faith in what you knew and just honestly said, like, hey, because you'll do this too with workshops. Like, all right, let me teach you here for an hour, and you tell me, like, if it doesn't work and you don't think that I'm valuable here, great. But that's never happened, right?
Yeah.
Where they said no to that. And you'll advise even young people who are going out for a job, same kind of deal. Like, our grandpa worked for free at first at the grocery store. He said, same deal. Like, if you don't like my work, let me work for you for a day. Cool. Don't hire me. Well, they hired him and he was there forever.
Yeah.
Like, there's something to that, to just be willing to serve first and then see what happens after that.
Absolutely. Okay, so then this whole thing has now bubbled into an entire business of its own called Pros. And I'm assuming you go into various corporations. Doesn't really matter the discipline, because you have something because show business, acting is connected to life, which means it's connected to business, which means you can really walk into any company and help them. Is that right?
Absolutely. The skills cross over, like you said, to any company that has customers, that has employees, and also in your personal life. The skills also cross over into your personal life. So yeah, a lot of applications from the workshops and the book.
Awesome. Okay, so how are you navigating things right now as the world is changing and we're figuring out how to stay above water? I feel like all of us are going through this. I don't know. I personally just got out of a funk. I was in about a 2-week regression, I think. And it's like, the first wave of coronavirus came, and it took me about 3 days, I think. And then I was like, boom, I got it. And I just went like full force. And then all of a sudden, we thought we were through it. And then the second wave came, and it was weird because it was harder on me the second time. So then I'm like, literally this morning, I'm on my absolute A game. These guys can feel it. They're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble, because we're about to barrel roll forward right now with momentum. And so I'm going to ask you, how has it been for you and been in California and stuff? I mean, it's been hard, I bet.
Yeah. As I said, theater has always been such a big part of my life. So I have the theater part and the business part that I can address. So for theater, I do live theater. And so that stopped.
Yeah.
And who knows when that's coming back. And that was devastating to me because it's my passion. It's what I love. It's so much a part of who I am. The thought of not being able to do that again was really, really very difficult to take. And then of course, the business end of it, I can't do my business because I can't go out to any place. And so it was tough. And so after I spent, probably a week on the couch watching Netflix, we got to do something else, Barb. So first I went through my entire house and decluttered and cleaned and got everything organized, all the stuff I've been wanting to do. And then when that was over, I'm thinking, okay, well, now what? So on the theater side of it, I have a wonderful creative partner. And we had been doing some performances with some senior centers and using the seniors to perform shows. And of course, that stopped. So we started to do things on Zoom. And we started to use our actor friends and some seniors and put together a Zoom show and a YouTube channel. And so now we have a YouTube channel. The company that he had that we're working under is called Star Quality Productions. So we kind of named it during this time to Star Quarantine Productions. Same production company without the quality.
That's great.
So we've been doing Zoom performances and that creates its own set of challenges, especially to people who are used to the stage. So that's how I kind of filled the, the creative side of me. The business side of me, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you again, because of the marketing aspect of the book and the workshops and things like that. And maybe that has to be done virtually too.
Yeah.
So I'm still kind of figuring that part of it out, but I am getting the creative juices, going a little bit with being able to do the Zoom productions.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll tell you, we are so similar in so many ways in the work that we do, because I go into corporations as well. It's part of what really fills my bucket. I like to say that my niche is helping the 1% get 1% better. I like going in and working with super high achievers and listening and helping them find that little extra something. And to be very honest with you, that the business corporation side of what we do has been a little bit barren. But I believe actually that a lot of it has to do with my own mental capacity to think outside the box and realize that the opportunities are there, and the opportunity to serve is there, and the need is maybe greater than it's ever been. And yet I've been backing off, waiting for me to be able to have the opportunity to do it the way I used to do it.
Yes.
And that's a waste. So I'm going to tell you the same advice I'm actually telling myself, which is stop making excuses, find a way, give it away, be generous with your time, find a way to be, because here's the deal. I think we've all given away our product when we're trying to figure things out, right? Because the truth is it's worth what it's worth. So until I know all the technology and I have it down pat and everything's perfect, it's worth free. That's what it's worth, because I don't have my stuff down yet. But thank you, client, for being willing to be my test subject as I work through all the kinks and whatnot. And then that person will refer the next person. And just like when you started your business. So I think for the both of us, we have to think of this as a starting over point. And you need to think about, how do I, one step at a time, one day at a time, just start to build the momentum, just as if it was a startup, because it is. We're living in a new world, and we got to figure out the new way to do what we're doing, because it's so important. I mean, the corporate world needs theater more than they know.
Yes.
They need it so badly. And once someone like myself or you gets into a company, the entire culture can shift. And a company can go from being, even if it was going to be successful, to be successful and happy simultaneously. It's like this amazing thing. And so knowing that you have this really strong why and purpose behind what you're doing, it's time to just hang up the phone today when we're done and go, what can I do? How do I find a client? How do I find somebody, even if I got to give it away? How do I do something to push myself back into the place with where I was and figure this thing out? Because we're all dealing with it. Like, I went to the grocery store this morning, and you just have to have a mask in your car now. You walk in, you go anywhere, that's just the way it is. And it's like, okay, bummer, I can't wait till this is over. But until then, stop complaining. I still need to go pick up the milk. Like, it doesn't change that, So that's where our mentality has to be. Because I'm done surviving. I want to thrive again.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Matt. I do feel an affinity to you. I haven't known you very long, but I think that we're on the same wavelength. And I guess the difference is that I'm in Act 3 of my life. And I like to think that in the 73 years that I've been on this planet, that I've gained some wisdom.
Yeah. And
so one of my whys and one of my goals is to be able to work with people maybe who are in Act 1 or Act 2 of their lives and help them to make good decisions and good choices and get in touch with who they are and be able to really work to their potential by learning some of the skills that I think I've gained. So I'm not ready to hang it up yet. And like you said, I kind of think, okay, Act 3, I'm starting over. Hopefully this will be a 4 or 5 act show.
Sure. I'd like to think that I'm in the beginning of Act 2, I hope.
Yes.
None of us know, because we could be jogging down the street and get struck by lightning. That's the truth. But let's pretend I am. I would love to learn from you. Honestly, I would love to connect on another time and ask you a lot of questions. And really, I think you're very wise from just talking to you for a little bit. And and then maybe one day you'll just pass on all your motor companies over to me. And I'll kick you back a percentage. Don't worry.
Let's have coffee coffee and talk, Matt.
Yeah, let's do this thing. Huh? I don't mind grinding if you just, we'll connect in that way. That's cool. All right, so let's talk about some more stuff here. We know each other through Linny Allen. How neat is that? How do you know Linny?
Well, Linny's a good friend. I met Linny actually doing a show, and we were in a show together. And you know how you make so many of your friends through theater, and so we kind of hit it off, and I just love her, and we kind of rekindled because I have another project that I'm working on. I wanted to talk to you about, and it's another kind of workshop, and it's called I Am Me First.
Yeah.
And this workshop was born at a time in my life when I was getting to that retirement age and I was struggling with...
Brian, I'm sorry, one second. Brian, you are going to love this movement, the I Am Me First deal. This is really, really cool. So basically, Brian does something similar where he has people write out their eulogies.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Which is really powerful. And so this is sort of a different take on that, but it's really cool what she's doing. Okay, sorry, go ahead. I had to just pipe in there.
See, affinity, Matt, Brian, it's meant to be. So I was working with a friend of mine, coach, mentor, whatever you want to say, because I was struggling with what did I want to do with the rest of my life, in my business life and in my personal life. So he put me through some exercises, and one of the things he told me to do was, because I was an actor, he said, I want you to write the story. I want you to write, produce, direct, star in, and be the audience of the story of Barb. And I said, what? I don't know what you're talking about, and I can't do that. And so he gave me some exercises, because one of the things I was working on was being vulnerable. On stage, I wanted to be able to cry on cue, and I can't do that. So I was working on my vulnerability, on maybe how to get to that point. So he gave me some exercises to do and listen to some music, and I did, and I found myself crying. And I went in and I sat down and I started to write. You ever hear of automatic writing? I just wrote about 4 pages. I had no idea what I was writing. And when I was done, I had this little story, which I then called I Am Me. And it was, the story of me and where I was and where I wanted to go. And so I was really nervous about what I was going to do with it. And I ended up recording it and watching it. And I said, oh, my goodness, and sending it to him. And he thought it was wonderful and wanted to use it with his clients. And I showed it to a few people, and people seemed really moved. So I started this workshop where I would do something similar to what Brian did, where I was asked people to look in their lives and find an event that was a challenge, that changed them, that impacted the person that they are today, and to talk about that and to write about it. And I asked them to write about a 2-minute monologue, and then they would come to the workshop and read the monologue, and we would then talk about it, and maybe even the audience would write a little something. So I asked Linny to be one of my I Am Me presenters. And Linny, she was wonderful and wrote a beautiful story. And she was one of the 10 people. I had someone from every generation. We started at 30 and went to 90 telling their story.
That's amazing.
So I would love to do more of that. But again, I don't know how to market it.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, it's just going to go back to doing it, getting it out there, word of mouth, I'm sure. But that is something that, gosh, people need this so badly. I say the same thing all the time, that if everyone just kind of found time to write something, they don't need to write a book. They just need to write something down to reflect on their day, reflect on their life. If you can find a way to do that daily, it will really change your life. We do a similar exercise with actors, where when they've written up something like that, you'll be amazed how quickly you can come up with a stand-up routine. Because you take your real life like that, and then all you have to do is, if you understand stand-up comedy, you just put in the jokes, and you highlight certain moments and you exaggerate them, and you've all of a sudden got a 2-minute stand-up bit, and it's pretty cool. But it stems from honesty. and then you just sort of like flip it and add a little lie on the end of it, and everyone knows you're lying. That's the joke, you know. And then it works every time. But that's really, really cool. Isn't that cool, Bri?
I love that. I get a lot, because my story is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
With everything that happened, and a lot of times people talk about how crazy it is, and they minimize their own story because of that when I'm
Right.
talking to people. And I think the first thing I'll talk to them about is, no, like, your story is so important. Like, everybody has a story. Every single person has a story. And when we share our story, not only do we empower, like, strengthen ourselves, but we empower others, because guaranteed somebody's going through what you're going through. Somebody out there is experiencing the things you're experiencing. So not only will you grow as a person, but, like, you get to help others. And I think that's such a cool movement. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and you'll get it, Brian. It's all about being vulnerable, and you know, and speaking about something that maybe was difficult, and how you grew from it. And I think it has application, you know, in the corporate world and just between people. So I'm excited about it, and it's going to happen. I'm just got to figure out how.
Have you read Brene Brown's book, The Power of Vulnerability? I think that's it. Yeah, she's amazing. Really, really good book. But yes, this idea of when in the corporate world, to find a way to become vulnerable is really important, and to be vulnerable in front of each other, because that's a lot of the work we do too. We usually start with comedy, but honestly, to be funny in front of somebody else is very vulnerable as well. And to show your sense of humor and whatnot can be very scary. And when people overcome that, they feel like they know each other on a whole new level. And then to say, yeah, I cried in front of my coworkers, and by doing so gained respect. How powerful is that? I mean, your team and your group is going to grow exponentially if you're able to do this kind of work. So, yeah, we need to get you out there. We need to keep this message going. It's a really, really good message.
Yeah, and, you know, it's funny because I invited my son, who's a very accomplished businessman, Maya's father, to come to the workshop. And I said, oh, you're probably too busy to come. He said, no, of course I'll come. And so he sat there and he listened to all these stories. And, you know, I always begin with, you know, one of the things, the reason why I did this is because I need to be more vulnerable, and I need to feel my emotions and allow myself to cry. Not only did I not cry on stage, but I didn't cry in my life. And so it was this whole process. And so he got up and he said, I'm like my mother. I've been crying for the last hour listening to your stories. And then he talked about his life and his story, and I was amazed. And then he said, you know, afterwards we spoke, and he said, Mom, you know, this has application in the corporate environment. If you can sit with a group of people and the general manager or the CEO can talk about a life experience that changed them, and if his employees can see him or her being vulnerable, that can really impact your business. And I hadn't thought of it in that way, you know, in the corporate environment. So it's something that I would like to pursue.
Yeah, that's excellent. Very, very cool. All right, so we're going to wrap up this show, Bri. Can we give some shameless plugs here real quick?
Absolutely.
Shameless plug
Shameless
time.
plugs. So you can follow her on
All right,
Facebook.
we need to have a shameless plug song. We
should have a shameless plug.
I've just been inspired.
Okay.
So
See if we can drum
cool.
something up today.
Well, yeah, it'll be for tomorrow, and it should be the two of you harmonizing and just shameless plug, something like that.
I really like it. I'm down. I'm down.
Is this shameless plug jingle, and then Brian will go off on shameless plugs. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Love it. Okay, cool. So again, she's got a lot of things going. You can follow her on Instagram. I am me first. That's at I_am_me_first. And also you can find it in the same organization on Facebook, and you can find her pros on Facebook as well. That's Progressive Organizational Services and Star Quality Productions. All those things you can find on Facebook. And again,
and let's give one last shameless promotion to the to your granddaughter's single. Could you remind us of what that is? 24 hours. How can we find that?
If you go on Instagram, and it's Maya Grace Music on Instagram, and you just click on her link, and you'll see the video. She's got a video, and you know, you'll find the song right there.
Excellent.
And that's Maya, right?
Maya, Grace Music.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll for sure do that. We'll send that out to our teenagers and make sure that they get impacted by such a beautiful message. And thank you, Barbara, for being on today. This was so much fun.
Yes, I had a ball, and I can't thank you enough. This was just wonderful. I'm so glad you guys are in my life now.
Yeah, well, we are connected, and God knows the reason. We'll figure out what that is later.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching this morning. This has been Mornings with Matt. We were on with Barbara Torino. And please, if you're watching, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Helps us continue to put out this light-driven content. Thank you, and God bless.
Thanks for listening to Mornings with Matt. Please like, subscribe, and follow us at Deering Acting Studio to keep up with the latest content. For more information on classes, private lessons, or professional development coaching, visit www.deeringstudio.com. Have a Deering day, everyone.